All right, so we're going to keep this quick, and we do have some questions that I prepared, but feel free to just jump in, cut each other, and disagree. But I want to start with one question that I guess for everybody here. If we try to sort of imagine the future 5 years from now, and we're in 2029 or 2030 sitting here, and based on the rapid innovation that we're all seeing, what is one thing that would surprise you, you think, and but on the other hand, what is one thing that would disappoint you if it doesn't happen, or if it does happen, gee, maybe you can get us started?
Yeah, well, particularly, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Particularly in this context, it's hard to imagine what's going to happen 5 months from now. Rather than 5 years. It changes so fast. But I think one of the things that is interesting is actually getting back to the reference that you had about resilient systems, that we quickly have moved from single, let's say, Gen AI into an agentic type application. And once you start building multiple agents, I'm really looking forward to it, and it's just my lack of imagination to think about how they're going to interact, because they're interacting and growing and evolving at machine speed rather than the nature that you referenced before. And so I won't be surprised with thousands of agents doing all sorts of things. I think what will perhaps disappoint, but in a positive way, is that we still see the same basic threat vectors as part of the kill chain.
Yeah.
And it's just how they're used and how they evolve after that, but it's still phishing. It's still compromised credentials. It's still the kind of basic stuff. And I'm hoping that with agentic agents on the protection side, we're able to finally solve this secure by default problem that we've struggled with for so long.
I totally agree, by the way. I think that one thing that we've been accustomed to, and I think we're still there, is this asymmetry, the asymmetric sort of notion or nature of this race that we have all the time. And perhaps for the first time in history, there is a chance to sort of break that asymmetry, and I would be disappointed if we can't. Ambi, what would disappoint you?
So I think, first of all, what would disappoint, it's very hard to even say anything about the future now in the speed that everything is going, right? None of us will say anything about that. I think what would disappoint us, if you look into the future and you go back, right, you look at this time, right? Obviously, we all think this is like the mobile revolution, web revolution. We think we are now in the AI revolution. We'll have to see in a few years if it's true or not, right? Because right now, current organization is still not transforming anything. Okay, let's be, honest. We think that the agentic revolution will change everything. We don't know. So it will be disappoint me if I go back and say, okay, things didn't change so much.
Pretty much the same.
Yeah, okay, write a bit more code faster. Okay, that's not a big change, right? So let's see. In terms of, I think what G said is like I fully agree. My view is this: there is a set of attacks in the world that are the known attacks. Putting aside 0 days, okay? Like a few days ago, there was an attack against SAP NetWeaver. That was a 0-day attack used by attackers, right? But that's actually pretty rare that you have like 0 days. 99.99% of attacks are known attacks, right? And we should eliminate known attacks, right? So I fully agree. We should eliminate known attacks. Why do we have environments? And these are, I'm not talking about just a small web server of an SMB. In almost all of the enterprise software today, you have known attacks. It shouldn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Daniel, same question to you.
There's so many dimensions you could pursue that question down. I think, staring at the agentic problem today, the scale out of that agent and agents talking to other agents, sort of you telegraphed that a little bit. I think I would be disappointed if we didn't build sort of scalable trust tools sort of underpinning those agentic interactions, because I do feel like we need to find ways to transit whether it's authentication credentials or access credentials, lots of different materials, and finding easy ways to do that so that people who are building these solutions can really focus on the workflow they are without having to deal with the results behind that. So I would be disappointed if that doesn't happen because that will really slow down a lot of the innovation. I think for data, and this gets to your shared defense, I think there are places where we're seeing sort of data balkanization of like, well, this is my data and this is your data. I would be really disappointed to see that happen in the security space because it is very much a shared defense posture. And that breaking down, I think, would be detrimental to all of us who have to very much move quickly and in that continuous learning mode, have to integrate learnings from across the globe to really defend effectively against sort of emergent threats. So.
Thank you. So switching gears a little bit, Natalie, when you think about the differences in protecting traditional workloads versus AI workloads, is there anything different that we need to be thinking about when you think about your development cycles?
So first, when you are protecting AI workloads, you have to manage through all the traditional attacks that you need to handle with regular workloads. But then you have a whole new level of complexity because you have new attacks, you have jailbreaking, you have prompt injection, you need to keep your model, make sure that you have integrity of your model. But then in addition to that, protecting the agents, it's much more difficult because they are not following the same fixed logic. It's unpredictable. So protecting it is much more difficult. You cannot predict what it will do and then say, oh, this is an anomaly. Everything is different. Now think about the scale, right? I personally think scale is going to explode very soon because AI agents.
In what sense?
Because AI agents are going to do much more work than what we individuals would do. And then you'll have millions of agents that you'll need to protect. And then you'll have millions of identities, not non-human identities that you need to protect. Think about the complexity of that. I don't think systems are even ready to what is going to come with AI agents. So to sum it up, you'll have more transactions, more identities, new attack vectors. It's a huge challenge, but this is what makes it interesting.
And potentially crossing multiple environments.
Yes.
Cloud, on-prem, also.
Crossing what, sorry?
Yeah. Crossing multiple environments to add to that stack of complexity,
When you say multiple environments, what are you referring to?
On-prem cloud.
On-prem cloud, hybrid cloud,
Got
out to the edge, potentially, unioning your phone and your data center simultaneously into that context is wild, right?
Yeah. I mean, do you think like you guys sort of miraculously figured out on the cloud side? Do you think that the analogy between what happened, what you saw in the cloud when you started looking closely into it and the observability, et cetera, do you think that there are lessons learned that are relevant to where we're going with AI?
So our approach in cloud was, we know the attacks, let's figure them out if you have any of those attacks. In AI, we don't know the attacks yet. So I can't promise. Honestly, this is a hard problem. Like, this is scary. I just want to make it clear, in my view, where the line becomes scary. Like, when people say agents, agentic AI, I just say, from a security view, I'm doing security view, I say, okay, you're going to give this thing permissions, right? Once you start using a AWS MCP, and you're going to give it right permissions, like, how am I supposed to monitor this thing? It's not a script. It's like, this is scary, and I'm not sure any blueprint of everything we've ever done is going to help here, right? Because usually there's a potential attack, a SecOps. What do? I go to the developer. Did you do this? What is he going to say? I don't know. Maybe my agent did it. Now we ask the agent. Maybe he's lying. I don't even know how we approach this problem.
I mean, I'm disappointed. I thought that you had an answer. I mean, I've known you guys for a long time. I have faith.
There is maybe my agent has an answer. But to be honest, if someone says he has an answer for AI security, I think he's wrong. Whatever he says now, maybe it's not relevant when these guys ship new stuff tomorrow. Honestly,
I agree. G, do you have any ideas about what is it going to look like when we have instantaneous attacks? Like, how are you seeing this? How are you preparing for this?
Yeah. So. To the point that we may be able to have a symmetric kind of response, what that really implies underneath is like defend agents against attack agents. And And when you start to have that kind of scenario, things, to Natalie's point, operate at a very different scale than previously, but they also happen at a very different time scale as well. And so we feel that if this were to materialize, the entire kind of security industry can fundamentally change. And I'll give you an example. Today, patching is one of the tried and true ways of keeping vulnerabilities out of your code. And Wiz and others, very good. Here, G has submitted code. Here's the patch. Here's how you do it. In the future, if you have a patch and then an LLM finds a new vulnerability the next day, that patching strategy, one of the fundamental pillars of the security industry, disappears. Yeah. Right? And so you have to kind of think about it differently from a cloud instantiation perspective, being able to contain, being able to isolate, being able to do these things. And I'll give you another analogy. It used to be, back in the day when I would write high performance, high reliability code, it required an underlying high reliability hardware as well.
Yeah.
Now today, we write high reliability code and CPUs are getting swapped out and disk drives are getting swapped. We don't even think about the hardware. I think there's going to be this mixture between the infrastructure playing this role where folks like Wiz and others are protecting an agent sitting on top. And I think that's going to be something that's going to happen within that 5-year time frame that you were mentioning earlier.
Right now,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Daniel, you guys sort of are powering all this.
Yes.
What do you think about your responsibility versus the security folks, the cloud folks? Is there an idea of a shared responsibility there?
I mean, for sure, shared responsibility. We are by our nature sort of an enabler for all of the above. We enable the CSPs, we enable the cyber partners, but we're almost never completely that last mile. But for us, when we think critically, in order for NVIDIA to succeed, AI needs to succeed, which means we have to have trust in these principled solutions, right? And when we talk about agentic, we were talking about scaling agency and autonomy. Well, we need to scale trust and control along with that. Not all agents need to be fully autonomous, but for those that are, we're going to need a lot more advanced monitoring and capabilities. We're going to need active control and response when they are exceeding, we'll say, the bounded determinism. They're not deterministic demonstrably, so that complexity you were articulating so nicely. But there are some bounds of expectation that we're generally going to be able to put on those things and say, hey, when you're sort of out of these things, we want to intervene and take action. And that may be an AI agent. It may be an AI agent getting a human operator into the loop to go look at this thing right here, but ideally at the right time scale to address the attendant risks that are coming with that.
Yeah. And Natalie, let's sort of come back to today's problems. How are you dealing with AI proliferation and shadow AI? I think everybody here is sort of trying to put their heads around what's allowed, what's not allowed. What do we, how do we use AI? How do we not stay behind?
So we talked about disappointment earlier, and I think the biggest disappointment would be if organization will not use this huge opportunity to improve productivity, right? And I think it's on us, the security providers, to be able to allow them to safely adopt AI. And I think this is an issue that comes up in every meeting that we had in the last year. The first topic the CISO has is, I feel that I'm forced to go that way, but I'm scared. And unlike any other transformation we've seen, people are adopting it really, really quickly.
They have to.
They have to, right? Because otherwise they are so far ahead. So we need to provide the tools to do that. And of course, the first step is visibility, right? How do we see what our employees are doing? And so we embed into each of every one of our product or different enforcement point the way to allow the security administrator to know which applications, AI applications, are being used by the employee and for what usage. I can give you an example. We saw in one of the major hospitals that nurses were using ChatGPT in order to decide what to do with the patient. And it doesn't have anything to do with security, right? But come on, I came to the hospital in order to get someone who will care about me. And if I would want to ask ChatGPT, I would stay at home with my broken leg and ask what to do, right? So it's security, but it's also regulation and overall compliance. And some people might say, hey, I trust OpenAI with everything I do, and maybe I don't trust another application. So we need to allow them to see which applications are being used, recommend which are more risky than others, and then talk about how they are using it and which data are they sharing. And then, of course, enforcing. So in each and every one of our products, we enforce based on the policy to say, hey, you can use this application, but you can use it for code, or you can use it for, writing PowerPoint, and you cannot share this data. And I think this is very powerful in the journey companies are having towards using AI.
And you talk about policy. One of the things that I find interesting in the expression, and maybe running into the multiple ways we support, but that same policy at an IT enforcement point, at an enforcement point, can be used all the way on the developer side. Like, hey, when you build this, your SSH ports should be open root to the internet, right? And the cursor copilots and the monitoring tools and the deployment orchestration tools can all be leaning in with their own AI agents under the same guiding rubrics, which really helps reinforce, again, that sort of defense in depth view all the way through the ecosystem. And this will impact every organization, from developers to HR to manufacturing to operations, right? Yeah. So everyone needs to prepare for this transition, and naturally the IT organizations are very anxious about it because it's coming in waves throughout the organization.
Yeah, I've never seen something like that. Like, I feel that every day one of my developers come and say, hey, I want to use this tool. And most likely they are not telling me I want to use that tool. They are just going ahead and using that tool.
They already did use the tool.
Oh, I need to tell you something. Yeah.
That's for forgiveness. So, G, do you think that we need to work as an industry to have a joint standard for AI security, or is that naive?
No, I think it's actually a requirement. And by the way, we've seen the success of that with MCP, right? It just was launched, in November? So 6 months ago?
Yeah.
It feels like it's been here forever. Like, everybody is building MCP servers and whatnot. And to your point, Daniel, it's great to see it evolve very quickly. Again, within 6 months, from a usual transport protocol to include auth and other things, these essential elements. So that's at the protocol level. I do think from a threat intelligence perspective, there will be these new patterns. And one of the things that I love, I don't know how many CISOs are in the audience here, but one of the things that brings me great joy about being in the security industry is the teamwork that we have as CISOs and sharing that information, best practices, what you're seeing in each of the verticals. And I think that will continue because it is a new dynamic, and that ability to share the information, improve the protocols, being able to continue to adopt policies and whatnot is essential to keep it going. It's not surprising to me that over the last year, within AWS, we have seen clear indications that this technology has gone from skunkworks and POCs and whatnot into prod. And the way we've, of course, done that by building a bedrock where you can have all the surround and pick and choose your model. But it's not until you have these frameworks where companies can use this with confidence that then it takes off in the prod environments. And so I think they go hand in hand, quite frankly.
Daniel, same question. Do you guys see yourself promoting an industry standard, or?
Certainly driving at areas like MCP, but even more fundamental things like we've been involved in open SSF around model signing, right? There are so many models out there. How do I trust which model I'm consuming and putting into this organization? And we're like, hey, we need a common standard. Everyone can participate. There's no barriers, but we need to know the provenance of these exchanges, especially when they go, base model and fine tune. It's gone through 4 or 5 hands before it received in your institution. Man, we really want to understand the nature of what this is. What's the basis of it? Oh, signing. Hey, we've done signing for decades in all these other areas. Cut and paste these normative patterns, apply it to this new regime, communicate that information through the interactions, whether MCP or other, to make sure we can have trust in the transactions we're pursuing.
And it'll be interesting to see if these marketplaces with these models, there's many of them, whether they authenticate, like whether they cert, and you have kind of like a root cert for these agents coming out and things. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
Well, and we can look at confidential computing attestations to lay claim, what am I actually running? Can I transmit that through the agentic flow? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The tools are there. We have the foundational pieces. We just need to build it out with a coordinated motion from the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen this industry, I think, from its infancy almost. Do you think there's anything that and you've seen it from different perspectives, do you think that there's anything that we should stop doing or slow down before we get into like really big trouble?
So I don't know if it's slowed down, but think about the current situation. Usually, when there's a new technology, networks were invented, checkpoint started a few years after, right? Usually, mobile security solutions came a few years after, right? Cloud started 2008, right? Security solutions started 2010, 2012, right? Mm-hmm. Usually you have around 4 or 5 years for the industry to adopt the technology. At that time, we have time as an industry to build security tools. Here we don't. We don't. Like
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks, go.
Exactly. We need to react as an industry. That's why we really have to cooperate. People here, like competitors, because as you said, I liked it. We're not really competitors, right?
Competimates.
Exactly. I mean, because we have to because it's moving faster than, this is the fastest technology the world has ever seen adopted. We've seen like more than 85% of the cloud environments already have AI services. This is like, so it means that we have to react as an industry faster than we usually do, right? Because as an enterprise, usually you want to deploy a security tool that is, already in the compliance, right? It takes years until it gets to compliance. So we can't react this way anymore. So it's not about slowing down. It's actually moving faster as security industry. And the agreements of MCP, or if we talk about reference architecture for an agent, right? Yeah, we have to talk about it now. And by the way, before we ship it, right? So if you ask me, like, what we have to, it's not slow down, but they ask that we have to do as an industry, right? When we ship an AI concept, like an AI agent, we should already come with a reference architecture for security. Otherwise, we're just putting out something without any control. No one is going to know how to use it, and they're going to use it.
They are going to use it.
We'll delete your production in the AWS.
Well, and the lovely thing about the reference architecture, though, is a lot of the foundational security principles exist already today in cloud. We're just translating them across, and if those are baked in by default at inception, you're 90% of the way there, right? Yeah. And now we're just dealing with sort of the new novel sort of injection flows and other dynamics that come in there. But a lot of, for all that there are a lot of headlines that are saying, AI was really bad. It's like, well, that was an S3 bucket configuration problem. Really, at its root, that's just hygiene. Yeah. Like, don't forgo. And again, AI tools help accelerate all of those tasks as well.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about the AI operating system for cyber. What's the vision there, and is it something that is sort of proprietary? Can others plug in?
Yeah. So. At the core, the power of AI is reasoning, right? And so we envision a platform where the AI operating system will know everything that needs to be known about the organization, the applications, the assets, the employees, the intentions. Think about it like having really, really deep context about everything. And then being able to predict and block or make a decision based on what you know. So it's like, if we take a metaphor, it's like having a super admin that know each and every employee in the organization, what they want to do before they even know that they are going to do it, right? And being able to protect using that. And I think that, as we said, MCP or A2A, all of these new AI native protocols are the first step to have this AI OS where we'll know everything. And it's not just about what we know internally about the organization, but it's also what we learn externally. Like if there is a new signal of threat, a new risk outside, the AI will know immediately and immediately change the defense or add protections in zero time in order to protect. That's kind of the vision. And as Ami said, we need everyone to get there. It's not going to be one company that will solve it.
Yeah. And so, Daniel, when you look at the infrastructure that you provide, sort of the backbone for AI innovation. Do you see a role in working together with security vendors to set the norms? Do you see a different kind of collaboration between security vendors and the backbone?
I mean, absolutely. In principle, there's securing the AI infrastructure and then using AI to drive security. There's sort of this flywheel between both sides of this equation. And certainly the cybersecurity set are sort of in the securing the infrastructure, but you need foundational tools to do that. So baking security into every layer is super important. We're obviously invested in that. And then delivering those capabilities for you to add your additional value on top. That goes from, fundamental secure compute and other services, telemetry that you can then tap into to enrich your contextual view of what's going on in this environment and make active defense. Networking layer, there's technologies like DOCA or NBU, which allows sort of out of context reasoning against what's going on in an environment. Those are all open source SDKs that can be integrated into any cyber service if you need to, again, get at sort of the fundamentals of what's going on in this environment and elevate to a context where we can make more intentional judgments about what we want to do. And rather than saying, hey, here's 3,000 IPs I need to go defend, it's like, hey, I need this VPC to only talk to my corporate environment and have the agents figure out the rest of it, right? They know what my corporate footprint is. They know where this is deployed. It may be AWS, it may be GCP. It doesn't matter. It figures out the difference and then goes and sets up all the rules that it needs to defend that. That's a powerful paradigm if we get it. But we're crossing like 5 different domains, which means, again, we have to be working together through common patterns to make sure we can realize that.
G, from your perspective, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to be consuming most of our AI from your infrastructure. How do you see sort of setting the norms with the rest of the vendors, like to get sort of is there a common norm that we have to adopt?
Yeah, so in some ways, you can think about an agent or a Gen AI kind of function as just another service. We know how to protect services, and this is just one. It's connected to an application. We know how to protect applications. And so what's the interesting piece, as Natalie pointed out, is the interaction between these things. So now it used to be that you'd connect to your application through a WAF or a firewall at the edge. Now we've moved that edge internally into the app itself. And so that edge now is distributed across these, and it's kind of working together down at the fundamental level. In the hypervisor, we have Nitro and things like the full stack to make sure these interactions are bounded, and both from a policy perspective, but from a connectivity perspective as well. And so there may be certain connections, maybe your front end, chat agent to your database that you just do not want to ever have happen.
Yeah.
And so you put an enforcement point in between. Like these are the things that we'll have to continue to work through together.
I mean, I'm curious from your perspective, the whole exhilarating world of agentic AI. How do you see that changing the way we operate in cybersecurity? I mean, going back to to poor Maya that had perfect security and still got breached. What's your view on that?
So, first of all, the agents seem to be one of the key abilities for us to really get more efficient, right? Most of the time in security teams, it's not like a movie where we actually hunt bad guys. Like most of the time, what we do in security, we do. Reports, then we go to this team, can you please fix this patch? It's very, very repeatable tasks. Like obviously my hope is that agents will allow security teams to dramatically improve their efficiency, right? I think that's the promise.
But on the reverse side, don't you see a world in which everything that we've built so far becomes obsolete in the sense that, like you said, most of the time we're fixing this, we're fixing that, we're sending an email here, a Jira there, a Slack there. Yeah. But in this sort of world of agentic AI and autonomous agents running on our network, don't you see like a lot of that becoming just a historian?
No, I don't think so. because the world doesn't work like that, right? I mean, when you have cars, the autonomous cars, they function initially as cars just are automated, right? They don't just invent completely the car, right? There's a reason, because the roads are built for cars, right? So I don't think it's like the world moves in steps. Even in AI, it still moves in steps, right? So the first step is going to take whatever we do now and try to make it more efficient. So you see, now what's going to be in the few generations, I don't know. Right now, the opportunity is to take the tasks that you have in vulnerability management, in SecOps, do them more efficiently, and also do them faster, because also attacks are coming faster. So that is, I think, the key value right now that we can see. As long as we find the way, the reference architecture, to give this agent permissions without freaking out.
I will say that, at least from a cloud perspective, it offers the opportunity for a new paradigm. Security in the cloud environment is actually a pretty strange model. The vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, et cetera, come in from the builders, the developers. It's monitored by the security people. They find stuff with Wiz and other platforms. But the security people don't actually touch prod. They hand it back to the developers to fix. So you have this dynamic where it's builder, security, back to builder again. And that's because they're very specialized, they're very unique skill sets. But my hope is that with agents and whatnot, we can move more of the security over to the builder and make builders security experts and have kind of security built in without them even really knowing. They don't have to become security experts, but we start to just like move as much over to that side of the ledger. And then, of course, there'll always be roles for security people and do that. But the more we can kind of shift that load, and I do believe we have the opportunity to do that here, I think we're just better off. And I'm very excited about that possibility.
I think in terms of your comment about the compression in time,
yeah,
that's almost an imperative.
Yeah,
that we move that left. We have to encode that expertise and move it into the cursor dev tool or the Helm writer or whatever.
Exactly right.
Yeah, going back to what Ami said earlier, I don't see a world where we'll have vulnerability anymore.
Yeah.
The AI will think about all possible vulnerability before we even deploy the code.
Yeah.
So we don't need to chase everything all the time. Hopefully.
Sounds great.
New vulnerabilities.
What are we going to do in this world?
You're going to check in 5 years and we'll see if we built it.
Yeah.
Be sad or disappointed.
Maybe we should all have a box that we write our...
Yeah.
So, Natalie, what are you saying? We don't have job security?
Oh, no.
We'll have new challenges, don't worry.
There will be new ones, for sure.
Yeah,
will be
so
new
let's talk
problems.
about those new ones.
But not the tedious one, right? Now, some of the work is very tedious, as Ami mentioned. I hope this part, the tedious work, will go away.
Yeah, one of the things that strikes me in the era that we're entering is that at the end of the day, we really have this human limitation of imagination of what's coming. So how do you deal with that? Because one of the things that none of us is going to be extremely surprised if there is an incredibly sophisticated attack, like out of a Hollywood script happening tomorrow morning, right? It's like the fact that it hasn't happened so far is kind of surprising. So the question is to all of you, like, how do you deal with this complete uncertainty and human limitation of imagination?
I think the way to deal with that is collaboration, right? No one has the answer. Exactly like Ami said, no one has the answer. If we'll continue to work and not break these traditional walls between supplier, customers, competition, and we'll continue to work in these silos of endpoint solution, we'll not be able to solve it. So I think partnership, like you talked earlier about Open Garden, right? The partnership, I think we have an example here, partnership with Amazon.
Just the audience on the
stage.
Yeah,
everyone here is our partners, right? And solving things together. And I think another example is our, exactly what we're doing is establishing a new AI research center. Because we know we don't know the answers. And we know that, going back to the point made earlier, we are all solving the problems of today. We need to collaborate and imagine the problems of tomorrow or a year from now and solve that together. And I think that's
one of the models that we're thinking about at the AI Research Center that we're just starting, and we really hope to collaborate with everybody here because it's more of like a think tank than a commercial sort of entity. But the way I try to think about the framework is always trying to think about what's at stake, like clarity of purpose, like what could happen if it does, how is it going to affect our lives, how is it going to affect our nation states, how is it going to affect the economy, so what's at stake. The second is what's possible, like what, and you know, come with a, you know, everything is possible, right? Especially where we are right now, and especially if you're thinking in sort of a think tank. And lastly, think about the assumptions. So we have to make assumptions, but we have to stress those assumptions. So we have like certain assumptions based, but then we constantly think, all right, but what if these assumptions are not going to hold true? Then what happens? And reiterate. And one of the things that we want to do there is bring people that think like attackers, that are constantly going to imagine what is possible. And then attack ourselves and share that information, put it out there, get feedback, and again, and hopefully by creating this kind of environment, we can at least not be completely surprised. But I'd love your thoughts on that.
All of it?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So the discussion today has largely been around applications and Gen AI in that. We have yet to really cross over to the physical world around, Amazon is my biggest customer, and they have lots of warehouses with robots, and so we focus on the agentic, but once it goes into inference in real physical worlds, you'll have like the malware equivalent on the application.
You thought
to
you were not scared enough up until now? You had to make us even
So one thing that we cannot live with is Amazon services not getting to my door.
exactly.
The drone will drive.
I have a 12 years old kid. If she won't get her Amazon package, I don't want to be there.
But then you can start to disrupt manufacturing and other things. And so we have to always keep an eye out on this bridge between these two worlds. And so we think very deeply about that because we have kind of both sides of this.
We work in autonomous vehicles and
exactly.
manufacturing and things. I think one thing that's sort of that we didn't touch on here, but is maybe relevant into this context in particular, is simulation and digital twins to allow you to game out some of this what's possible, and if this should occur, how would it happen? I think security often deals in very uncommon events. So being able to generate an experiment in sort of real time, whether it's a digital twin of a network environment or a physical environment, I think that we have advanced in tools to really help us explore some of those spaces and really understand the contours of that risk profile you laid out there. Omniverse for us, but there are others
little mini
in the
firewalls
world.
in there.
And really, especially when you get these very complex dynamic systems, it's hard to predict kind of how this is going to play out.
Ami, I mean, when just unscripted, maybe a last question before we break for lunch is, I assume that when you guys were sitting there and thinking about the future of cloud security, you had some kind of mental model to think about it. If you were going out there right now and starting an agentic AI security company, how would you think about it? I know that that's not in the cards because there are many billions there that are going to keep you in a different place. But if you were.
Yeah, I mean, cloud and AI is probably the same market,
So how would you think about it? What's the framework to sort of start planning for that future?
So the way I see it, and again, I think it's also maybe an optimistic note, right? Historically, defenders are at a much worse position than attackers. Why? There's two reasons. One, the attacker only needs to succeed once, okay, right, as we know. And the defenders, again, unless you're like in a huge government where you have hundreds of people, defenders are usually just 2 people or 3 people in a small team and they don't know everything, right? So strategically, the way I see it for agentic AI and in general now using AI, we can change the equation. We can change the equation. We can give defenders much more power because the defender will have the knowledge of the hive, right? This dramatically can make attacks harder. Or again, maybe new attacks would be different, but if we have the Hive kind of knowledge that every security team is empowered to be military-grade security, that is, for me, the optimistic note here. How exactly we do it, I don't know. It goes back to your concept of like the resiliency kind of. Just think about a simple analogy, right? If there is someone in my neighborhood, the house is broken, right? But I know exactly how they broke into the house. And in the same second, all of the houses across the entire world protect from this attack immediately, right? We move faster. We become adaptive. Like that. We give the power back to the defense. That's like.
No, I love the Hive analogy. It's sort of the complex adaptive system idea. Hey, folks, thank you so much. I hope you're hungry because there's a lot of food out there. Thank you for the collaboration with all of you. I think it's a good example of working together to make our world a little bit safer in these crazy times. So thank you.